water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony, but then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. These words, you know them. If you like Avatar: The Last Airbender, you've heard them a lots of times. But do you understand them? By attacking the three other nations, the balance and equilibrium of the world was damaged. But why is it that way? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, Azelrix here and welcome to this very special episode of Let's Talk Theory. Today we will try to understand the philosophy and the magic system of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We will discuss and dive on its effectiveness, both inside the lore and on a writing standpoint. Also, we will see how and why it is exploited. But first of all, real quick, if you interpret the elements differently, feel free to leave your own analysis in the comment section. Also, if you are new to the world of Avatar, please beware of spoilers for the entirety of the Last Airbender show and some of the Legend of Korra, but nothing major here. Alright, so now that this is out of the way, let's talk theory. Every fiction with supernatural elements shares a common trait: it is overviewed by a magic system. There are two types of magic system, hard magic and soft magic, and to determine which kind we are dealing with, we need to take a look at the three laws of magic, theory developed by writer Brandon Sanderson. The first law of magic says that an author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands said magic. Which means that if the writer wants to create magic spells and incantation in the goal of solving tricky situation, they must first introduce some kind of process so the audience can understand the solution. This avoids the reader to be lost in the author's train of thought and declassifies magic as a deus ex machina. The second law states that limitations are more interesting than powers. Sure, it might be interesting to see what Harry Potter can do with a single magic wand spin, but it is always more interesting to see what he cannot do with it, why he can't do it, and how he will use what he can do to resolve the situation. We can extend that to Superman's power, which are incredibly high and powerful. That's why kryptonite exists, to give him some limitation and create conflicts. And finally, the third law states that you should expand on what you have already before you add something new. This law essentially says that it is better to have few magic that is very well developed and understood rather than having a lot of magic that is only developed on superficial and shallow ways. You might have gotten it by now, this is a scale on how much is your magic system surrounded by rules. The more rules surrounds your magic system, the harder it becomes, and the opposite goes for soft magic. A very popular example of soft magic system is The Lord of the Rings, surrounding the character of Gandalf the Grey, later renamed Gandalf the White. He is powerful, he is a wizard, and you always get away with, shut up, it's magic. The reader doesn't really understand the magic system of The Lord of the Rings, which makes it a soft magic system. In the case of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the fact that there are literally philosophies and ways of thinking related to the magic system essentially composed of only 4 elements, and that these 4 elements are surrounded by rules, makes it a hard magic system. So what are the rules? According to our favorite tea-drinking uncle, each element represents a virtue and a philosophy. Water is the element of change, of evolution, like current coursing through a river. Waterbending is constantly evolving in creating a flow for its bender to follow. This philosophy explains why ice bending and vapor bending are simply move waterbenders can do rather than a sub-bending technique like metal bending for earthbenders. The water chakra deals with pleasure but is blocked by guilt. This means that the key to waterbending would be to let yourself submerge by pleasure and emotion without totally losing control over yourself. Like Katara, who is the most emotional member of our main cast and often acts on emotion, but also is the mother figure who always says it is better to react than to act, and more often than not is regarded as the voice of reason.
I do hate them.
I don't think so. I think you miss them.
But you just don't want to deal with that.
Earth is the element of substance, the rational and grounded element. Earthbenders are stubborn and will not bow, break or budge like a rock. The Earth chakra deals with survival but is blocked by fear. This means that the key to earthbending is rational thinking, the understanding of your surrounding and shaping it to your liking, and the elimination of fear and incomprehension through this understanding. Like Bolin in the Legend of Korra, who was always ashamed of himself for not being able to bend metal, but on the verge of death discovered his own ability to bend lava by making a hard to bend element obey his power.
You're a lava bender!
I know. I just found out.
Fire is the element of power, but is also energy and life. A flame is like a little heartbeat, but can also cause great destruction and swallow everything on its path.
Flame will go out if you make it too small. Make it too big. You might lose control.
The fire chakra deals with willpower, but is blocked by shame. The key to firebending would be to be at peace with yourself and your own emotions. But according to Uncle Iroh, fire is also coming from your breath, from within yourself. This might explain why firebenders can create fire rather than have to carry a little piece of it wherever they go, like earthbender or waterbender for example. Let's take Azula, who is a bad person and enjoys making people suffer, for example. She knows how bad she is and is totally fine living that way.
My own mother thought I was a monster. She was right, of course, but it still hurt.
Even Zuko could not bend lightning because of the conflict within him, causing emotional instability.
You will not be able to master lightning until you have dealt with the turmoil inside you.
I'm angry at myself! Firebending in and of itself is not something to fear. But if you don't respect it, it'll chew you up and spit you out like an angry Komodo rhino.
Speaking of which, lightning generation comes from the merger of positive and negative energy within said firebender. So once again, it is raw emotion versus control and acceptance of said emotions. Finally, air is the element of freedom. The air nomad detaches themselves from the world and from worldly possession, lightening their spirituality and freeing them from worries. The air chakra is powered by love and blocked by grief. This would mean that the key to airbending would be to spread as much love as you want around you, but keeping in mind not to be attached and not thinking about your loved ones as needs and attachments, but as extras. Like Zahir, arguably one of the most powerful airbender ever, who lost Pli, the woman he loved and thought about for 15 years in prison, and immediately unlocked the incredible airbending ability to fly, for the sole reason that he was now free of worldly attachments. That's, for each element, my thoughts on the key to master them, but the world of Avatar relies on one simple philosophy, the philosophy of balance. Aristotle, Greek philosopher, thought that the meaning of life was virtue. On its original meaning, virtue was what we call today balance. The positive and negative energy needs to balance each other to fully live. We can apply this logic to the world of Avatar. Earlier, I said that the key to waterbending was to let yourself submerge by your emotion without losing control, and the key to firebending was to be at peace with your emotion no matter what they are. Both of these elements are opposite to each other, yet both of them rely on the emotional spectrum of the bender. In the other hand, we have hurt and air. Air is freedom, it is detaching yourself from the world, living without worries or attachment, and thinking about the world that surrounds you as an element capable of guiding your path. While hurt is substance, and the key is to learn, listen and wait for the right moment to strike while forcing your path on life. Air and hurt are opposites, but both the keys to this bending resides on the processes of thoughts of the bender. To simplify it, let's say that we have a four-way duel between one bender of each element. The firebender will try to land the first blow to strike first to incapacitate their opponents early. The waterbender will favor striking second and reacting over acting to use the attack of the opponent at their advantage. The earthbender will strike when it is worth it to strike. If they judge it is a good idea to attack first, they won't hesitate, but if they fight an opponent who is faster, they will take the shot until they see an opening. Finally, the airbender will avoid the fight as much as possible and will only use violence as a last resort. They will prefer dodging and parrying their opponent's attack and find a way to leave the battleground. This is the balance between the 4 elements, but even then, are they really 4? If a firebender strikes first and a waterbender waits to land a reaction shot, what is the middle ground between these two? It is strategy. It would be to strike only when it is worth it, exactly what an earthbender would do.
Neutralging is the key to earthbending. It involves listening and waiting for the right moment to strike.
If an earthbender tries to strike when there is an opening, and the airbender only fight as a last resort, the middle ground between these two strategies is anticipating and adapting to the situation, strategy favored by waterbenders. All the elements perfectly balance each other, whether they are opposite or not. They all converge in one point, in one person. Reincarnated in every generation in a different nation, the Avatar is, without any doubt, the most powerful being in the world and represents balance and spirituality. They also represent the bridge between the spirit world and the human realm. That's a lot of responsibilities to put on someone's shoulder, so you'd guessed it, their skills, knowledge, and philosophy must be drawn from multiple sources, from all the nations. The best example is Avatar Aang, who follows the way of life the monks taught him almost to a fault, but eventually will have to realize that the world isn't black and white, and that he will have to take the Fire Lord's life to protect the world.
Avatar Aang, I know that you're a gentle spirit, and the monks have taught you well, because your sole duty is to the world. Here is my wisdom for you.
This goes against everything the monks have taught him, but before being a monk and an air nomad, Aang is the Avatar, and the Avatar's duty is primarily to the world. Even his predecessor Avatar Roku chose to spare the Fire Lord Sozin, decision that will lead to the 100-year war and the almost extinction of the air nomad. Here, Roku let his emotion cloud his judgment. I am not saying that death was the only way, but Roku didn't follow through with his duty and didn't check on Sozin to be sure nothing bad was happening. He put his personal feelings in front of the needs of the planet. He acted like a firebender, putting emotion and action before rationality and detaching himself from his duty like an airbender. But had he applied the philosophy of earthbenders, he would have taken a more grounded and objective decision and would not have left Sozin the freedom of doing what he did. Meanwhile, had he acted like a waterbender and reacted earlier and most importantly with more intensity, Sozin might not have succeeded in his plan of eradicating the air nomad. Roku himself said he had been way too laxist with Sozin, that he should have been more severe. This is the mistake Aang had not to repeat against Fire Lord Ozai. But then, why didn't Aang end his life? The entirety of the rivalry between Aang and Ozai can be resumed into these few shots. Here, Aang and Ozai are fighting for the fate of the world. Ozai throws a lightning ball at him, and Aang catches it, ready to resurrect it. Aang is too fast and so is the lightning bolt. All he has to do is not miss and the war is over. But then, these two shots happen. Aang and Ozai seeing eye to eye, Aang understanding that they both are humans, that even if Ozai is an evil overlord ready to annihilate an entire kingdom, it doesn't mean he deserves to die. Aang understands that all life is sacred, something that the monk has spent years teaching him. Then Aang redirects his shot in the air. We are sold how much power was inside him, but also this is when Aang decided what kind of avatar he wanted to be. An avatar that protects the world, but also a fair person who wants to help the victim and not punish the villains. Here, Aang acted like an airbender, but he rationalized the situation and he judged that acting like an airbender was the right thing to do. And to rationalize a situation that quick and take these kinds of decisions so easily, he had to think like an earthbender. He had to judge, he had to think rationally, he had to be smart, he had to be grounded. So he decided to spare Ozai's life because that was the right thing to do. That doesn't mean Aang is unbalanced. We must draw a line between balance and equality. Once again, he acted exactly like an airbender in this scene, but had he not learned how to energy bend from the lion turtle, the decision would probably have been different, proof being the opening of the fight. Aang starts the fight with earth, the element he has the most trouble mastering, and fire, the element he himself swore he would never try again to bend on the count of him burning Katara.
When I first tried to learn firebending, I burned Katara. I'm never gonna firebend again. I can't.
Aang is truly afraid of this element because he saw the destructive potential of it, and most importantly, he hurt someone he loved with it. But he knew that for what he wanted to do, he had to use these two elements to shut down Ozai's ship. Just like he knew that killing a man he could incapacitate instead by taking away his bending was wrong. Sparing Ozai was an excellent Avatar decision, as much as anything that Kyoshi or Kuruk ever did before. Not because he used and applied every nation's philosophy equally, but because he balanced them with each other. At the end of the day, isn't that what the Avatar is all about? Virtue, balance, and life? The burning passion of fire, the evolution of water, the reason of hurt, and the freedom of air. There is a middle ground between all these, a middle ground that you need to achieve if you want to become a truly realized Avatar.